Yeah.
Now, well, belatedly, due to a slight technical malfunction, we now can start our planning meeting. Thanks everybody for arriving. And in fact, the board's now somewhere else. I'm just thinking of apologies for absence. Councillor Davis is not here,
And Ward.
and Councillor Wade is not here. Have they both?
Yeah.
Apologised? Do we accept their apologies?
We do this.
Representations of interested parties. Well, we kind of had one before the meeting started, but otherwise there isn't anything. So, on to declarations of interest. Any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other interests?
No.
No. Minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 22nd of October, been circulated. Present were myself, Councillor Chesser, Councillor Shura, and Councillor Wade. And I sign those minutes as accepted.
It's,
Seconded by somebody.
I wasn't there, I was in secondary. Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, well, I've got you down this week.
Oh, I was there.
So,
Shows how much it's sunk in.
that was a very short one, about
That's Phyllis Healy and John Wood.
That's why, yes. Yes, so we were very small and lovely, weren't we?
yes, in both,
You should have been
councillors.
grateful you came, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, councillors present, small, and the number of applications was equally small. And somehow it still seems to manage to fill 5 pages a minute. Right, that brings us on to the actual applications themselves. And lo and behold, we start with the first of 3 applications in relation to trees. And the first one is a tree subject to tree preservation order 2 Old Avenue. It is Scots Pine, in fact, it's 2 Scots Pines. And this is effectively tree husbandry. They want to reduce by 5 metres and thin the canopies between 10 and 15%. The application indicates that similar work was undertaken 2018-2019 on the advice of the then tree officer to prevent damage. As is all too common, there's no supporting report from the tree surgeon, arts and photographs, however, there is a site plan. Not always most helpful.
So what is the tree looking in through the window?
Well, I think we're looking out from inside through the skylight, the tree. It's not as impressive as the problem I have with the next door neighbour with very, very large land, which now completely tower over the house. So completely obscured one of the 2 or 3 skylights. That's another story. This, however, it is. It's definitely the most bizarre tree photograph I think I've ever
It's
seen.
quite artistic.
The bird's really well placed, isn't it?
Anyway, we're not marking it for artistic merit. Or attempting it might be. It's a question of are we happy?
Do,
Now, because it's subject to TPH, you'd think, well, actually, the question is the work appropriate? I know it says it's repeating work that was carried out previously on advice, but you haven't seen any advice from the current tree officer. So it rather points me in the direction of saying, well, if the tree officer considers that this work is appropriate and necessary, fine. But it rather depends on the view the tree officer takes. Because I don't think we're a particularly good place to judge.
I just said by the fact that that's obviously quite a new structure. The tree would have been there a lot longer. And this is one of the problems, isn't it? People build things underneath trees and then.
And then it's good point.
Yeah,
So, no objections, subject to any interim review of the tree officer, or do we actually want to be a bit more positive about it and say that we, if the tree officer considers the work necessary?
I think that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that probably summarises it.
It's a better message.
Yeah. So that's provided. Clears. Right. This one's curious as well. This is 123 Blackthorn Road. And it's an application for permission to extend an existing dropped curb. It puts it here by 2 or 3 curbstones to facilitate the widening of the access to the driveway. I have the feeling that a couple of meetings ago, I mentioned this very property and this driveway. Brought it to my attention, thinking that actually the driveway had kind of trespassed onto the footpath, which I didn't actually, when I went and looked at it, didn't think it did. That photograph to me is distinctly unhelpful in terms of showing it. But there we are.
Well, excuse me, but it is useful because it indicates there's a crossing very close.
Which there is.
Yes.
So that appears to be on the zigzags of the zebra crossing. So we can envisage the zebra crossing at that point on Blackthorn Road. That's the one that in fact surfaces, I'm going to call the back entrance to the project school. The rationale behind it is to increase the amount of car parking spaces from 2 to 3, they say. As I put in my note, the application is supported by that plan and by that photograph. And curiously enough, certainly when I was putting this report together, there was nothing important. I was hoping there might be something there from the Highways to indicate their approach to it. But there wasn't then, and I don't know if there's anything, well, there are some comments now, so. This is the one that said there is a comment, and then you go to that, and there isn't.
No.
I remember now, because it does say the comment. One, and then you look at it, and just. So that doesn't have. I find this quite difficult to express a view on.
Yeah, it's Highways that the experts, on this, and if they're not objecting, I presume they'll have seen it.
Well, they should do. I mean, they have to give permission for a drop curve, as I understand it. So if they want to play with the drop, they will need Highways permission. Quite apart from the planning permission.
Would it not be helpful if we at least refer it to it in case?
Well, I think that Councillor Fuller may be right. Having made a comment previously about provided that the tree officer is satisfied, this looks rather like a provided that highways are satisfied.
Yeah, Highways.
Yeah.
It's not our expertise.
Because there's a danger, it's more dangerous by a crossing.
Yeah.
Because
The crossing,
it'll mean there'll be less cars parked, maybe that they've got a problem. Cars parking.
It seems to me, if you look at where the existing bit is, it's about the angle. I think they actually have to.
Yeah.
anything else.
I think so, from what we said to you.
It's a hard one.
But I think it's a planning decision.
It is kind of.
But on the zigzag, because just to show that we aren't being totally.
So I think we talked about some solution.
So we say that provided that it's all right by highways, and that in that we are influenced by the fact that this entrance appears to be within the zigzags.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's, yeah, we come across as being something.
Good. Let's get back to trees.
Well, I mean, let's have some trees, and these are less exciting trees than trees subject to TPO, because these are trees in a conservation area. But the more observant amongst you may have realised that this is the companion application to the one we looked at last month. Because last month we looked at number 17, road, and I think we made some observations at the time. This is going to look very odd if we actually end up doing work to part of this avenue and not. And then took the view that the avenue itself should be looked at for a possible TPO. Bearing in mind how we responded to the October application, it seems to be inconceivable that we would do anything other than repeat exactly that wording, except alter the phrase curtilage of 17 and to quote curtilage of 19 Walton Road, and then just resubmit exactly the same response.
I think so too. We've got to be consistent.
All right. Everybody happy with that?
Absolutely.
The train strikes, so you're sitting here. Right. This is the Newmarket News. So where Johnson's Butchers used to be,
Oh, yes.
that became a Seven Roads. As it were, if you're looking at that, immediately to the right of it, there is a good archway. And if you go through the archway, planning permission has been given to develop the buildings around the, you're going to call that the left-hand side. This particular building is the one right at the end. It's Unit 6, where what is being envisaged is that it would become, and as such, they want to put in an extractor flue, to remove cooking odours, etc. This would be made satin stainless steel, and it will go through the existing roof, and in a sense will project by about a metre. Although the applicant maintains that it won't be seen by neighbouring properties and so on. And the accompanying design and access and heritage statement made the point that the area itself is surrounded by high walls, so there's no loss of privacy, no loss of looking, and no loss of sunlight and daylight arising. It doesn't alter the building in terms of scale and height, although it is about a metre taller than the roof, but slightly confusingly then says it doesn't project above the ridge height. What perhaps is of note is that there was a comment on the portal from NEC Environmental Protection, who wanted various conditions on it. The first condition was what I might call construction plan, the usual thing, limiting work on the site between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a Saturday, no work Sundays, no work activities, etc., etc. And that's agreed. I'm sure that we would all echo that, though I seem to recall that when we were considering the application, whilst we were basically supporting of it, one of our concerns was having a decent construction management plan because of its location. The last thing we wanted was 2 or 3 trucks associated with works, somehow trying to get in and out and clutter up that part of town. So whether that condition goes quite far enough may be another matter, but then installation of extractor fluid, it's a relatively small bit of kit and it's going to come and go very quickly compared to everything else. So maybe the condition is adequate. Perhaps the major part of that condition, however, is to say that it needs to be supported by the appropriate kind of reports to look at the noise impact, but more realistically to look at odor. It says on that odor stroke noise. And I'm pretty sure that it will be generally supportive of that. I don't have any real issues otherwise with it. Those conditions seem to me to probably need what's needed. The work is obviously appropriate given the intended use. Do others have any issues with that? Or see other conditions?
No, I mean, I've always said that we looked at the previous application that doing up what is now being called Market Muse will only be beneficial for the centre of town.
Yeah.
And I think I have no objection subject to all the things you've already mentioned, you know, noise, as long as that isn't detrimental to the area and neighbouring properties.
Happy with that?
After all, it's still a business.
Mm.
Building, isn't it?
Yes, and we've already seen some development in this area. That has to be a good thing. It's increasing the vibrancy of the town centre. So I suspect our response is that we have noted the conditions sought by NNC Environmental Protection and echo the need for such conditions to be imposed.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think we need to say.
No, happy. Nice to see the traffic. Sometimes.
Yes, not that we're exactly short of cafes, but those choices. Do we need another one? Well, I suspect market conditions will dictate because it's in relative proximity to the lemon tree.
Yeah, but the nice thing about this one, it's got more outside seating, hasn't it?
It will have some outside seating, and of course they will be down the far end of the Muse, and therefore not perhaps causing some of the issues with outside seating at, say, Bean Street.
I think they'll possibly work with an existing cafe to provide outdoor facilities.
Obviously, it'd be good.
That brings us on very rapidly to the last of the applications. And back to trees, and back to TPOs. This one is at 24 Herman Road. We'll actually look at it, it's probably better known as Sterling Grange. And it is the penultimate house on that side of Herman Road. So one just before the large white house. And they want to is subject to a TPO, but they want to replace it with a new, which would in fact be the application cited within about 10 metres of the current application of that. The applicant's agent, Mr. Bennett, says that the reason they want to do this is that the tree is dead and it produces some photographs.
Does it belong to me? Yes, well, it's private to me.
Yeah.
And I've not made any observation of it being dead, I have to say. And not too many years ago, I had to get James Rowler down off it. She's off as fast as he could go on a Sunday afternoon. Consent, any kind?
Well, I seem to vaguely remember that incident. I don't find those photographs desperately helpful as a layman to tell me that that entire tree needs to be felled.
It's hundreds of years old.
Which kind of pushes you back to where you came in, because if the tree officer agrees that the tree is dead and needs to be felled, we wouldn't have a problem. But if the tree officer says that either lesser works could be done, or that no works needed to be done, well, equally we would support that.
Yeah.
So it seems to me it's exactly the same response, which is that we would only agree provided that the tree officer considers that the proposed works are necessary and proportionate.
It doesn't very helpful to me, because I'm not an expert.
Exactly.
It's a very rarity, and that's very common of how that looks.
Right.
And they've been
So
here
it's
for a couple of 100 years, these trees, planting another one, speedily get to look like one that's 200 years old.
I love the name Scots Pine.
Yeah, it is a very,
Don't know we got it, right?
I think somebody's crowned it at some point, taken the top out. Looking at it, so.
Makes
And
it-
we already know that it's been done that well, maybe that explains why it looks as it does.
Yes.
needs a bit of tree plastering.
Maybe.
But that is, if the photograph doesn't do it justice, shall we say.
So, I think we agree on that approach as well. The remaining item in this part of the agenda is there for information only. It's of interest. It relates to the St Christopher's Drive site, and it relates to the completion of condition 20, the Barrow Water Management Strategy. Councillors will recall that Barrow Water issues from that development have exercised this council for some time. We have been lobbied by commissioners from there, including an ex-councillor from there, that we took to just about all and sundry, I seem to recall. I think at one point we contacted NNC, we contacted the MP, I think Tom Hurston, because it would have been pre-election, and we contacted Anglian Water. But there's nothing very much we could do, but I'm quite interested to see whether NNC is satisfied. I think to know to watch this space. I'd rather Councillor Robinson is aware of this, because he may or may not want to say something direct to NNC. But unless there are any other comments or observations, I suspect we just have to move on.
It's one of those things. We just have to grip the deck.
Yes,
I mean, I'm sure that we cross every arm, that's the word. Not every arm, cross every arm, actually do a really good job, not just like it's about.
yeah.
That's the problem with this.
Well, that takes us on to planning outcomes. The couple of planning outcomes from both granted, and one of which we fully supported, which was work at the moment. Planning appeals, which brings us to our penultimate item, the response from the Baron. Now, I don't think we actually circulated it. What happened was that we ultimately recommended from here to full council we should consider approaching Mr. Barron with regard to the issue of whether or not we might want to revisit the neighbourhood plan support and his position on it himself. And the gist of it was to try and invite him to attend a meeting of which the first choice was to get him to attend one of our meetings. Not unsurprisingly, he said Tuesdays are a rotten night for me because I am busy with my parliamentary issues, but he did seem willing to have a meeting. I suspect that there may be a problem in trying to coordinate a meeting of the entire committee with the MP at a time that suits each individual member of the committee and the MP, bearing in mind that it's probably going to end up going to be a Friday evening or weekend, because that's going to be done in London. Would we be content, because I didn't pursue it because I thought I would different and just see whether people agreed. Are people happy for myself and anybody else who wants to go to try and have a meeting with him?
I think I'll just recommend trying to get a date at the time,
Superman.
and then just see who's available.
There's always something.
Happy with that?
Okay, start at this time.
Is it worth finding out his next surgery in ambulance? And see if we can tie into
I
that.
could also ask that.
He was here last,
Did you do one here?
he was in Great Hall last week. Ironically. So he'll be around, and he's certainly in the toll box.
Do you think, Lucy, you could get on to him and thank him for getting back to us, apologise for the fact that there was a delay whilst we were able to have discussed it in committee, and then go back to him and say, yes, we're happy to look at trying to tie it in with the surgery, if that suits you. Alternatively, come up with some dates and times that might work for you.
Yeah.
We'll see, which members of the committee can do it. Obviously, I can do it.
Okay.
I can relate a story about another neighbourhood plan having huge difficulties trying to get the final stage done. This is an MCAP with somebody. And the consultant cannot work out why they're refusing it. There's something about what they're doing. And yet when they put it through the test with some of the stuff, it all fails as well. They've gone through. So the sort of frustrations that we undertook in the past, which those of us who were councillor we know very well, have not gone away.
No.
So,
And NNC have simply never to at all.
no,
I understand that Helen Harrison is proposing to attend the next full council meeting.
I thought she'd moved away.
Despite what was published by the Liberal Democrats in a Focus magazine, that is my understanding.
Coming in.
She is coming in December. Whether she's coming from Kent or what, I do not know. I doubt, but no doubt she can answer questions about what has been said. But it might also be an opportunity to ask her to go back and have yet another go on over this issue.
The Strategic Town Forum last week. We had a leaflet.
Yeah, right.
was that the Thursday?
Yeah.
So there's two meetings, one on the 28th of January, one on the 30th of January. Someone there saying there are options, but they also mentioned that at the moment they haven't got any view of the neighbourhood
Yeah,
because they don't know what's happening in Centre. So I think it's a broad planning workshop. I don't have any magic answers for reported tonight. So
I'm just wondering whether Tuesday the 28th is actually
the plan.
planning meeting.
Last week it is, 28th of January.
Yeah, some problem here.
It would be our planning meeting.
send a diplomatic person to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have gone. But the other one is on a Thursday afternoon, which I may find tricky. But I'll see. I know it says what it says, i.e. it's for town and parish councillors. If there was nobody who could go, because we've got a meeting on the Tuesday and Thursday afternoons are not great, there is, I suppose, the possibility of looking at Lisa and asking whether Lisa could do the Thursday afternoon. I imagine
Is that
it would
right?
be happy for somebody in Lisa's role to
Yeah.
attend and then come back and talk to the committee.
She has it as well.
Thursday, the what, did you say?
Apparently it's Thursday the 30th of January at the old ENC Council.
Right. Which is very cool.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah,
I'll have to have a look at my diary.
I mean, maybe we can actually find somebody who can go. But we shall see. Yeah, thank you.
That's right. I won't be able to do the Thursday, but if all else fails, I can do it Tuesday. I suspect, but let's see what else comes.
Right. Well, that brings us on to any other matters for report only, which I'm going to spare into one or two things. We'll start with council.
That's just an announcement. I've been accepted as the NAP rep. So that's the national camp.
It's a nice, would be prime minister.
No, but it's one of those things where everybody had a go, they hate it. So it's not,
It's like pass the parcel and you ended up.
it's not great for you to
So you want us to congratulate you and commiserate with you.
I think it's going to be, because it's a complete sham. So commiserations would be very quick. Soon.
Having people in high places can be useful. Absolutely so. Councillor Chester.
I don't have anything.
Councillor Shirley.
I wish I had something that exciting. I don't.
Just one or two bits and pieces. In no particular order. Talking of neighbourhood plans, Blackthorn has a neighbourhood plan that works to 2031. It is now actively looking at instituting a review to produce a new neighbourhood plan to cover the period to 2041, which will be in line with the, I don't know whether we call it local plan part 3 or what, but anyway, the one that's going to succeed the current plan, which is very much in early development stages. So I think there's an element of watch this space. It's very, very clear that the parish council want to avoid coalescence with Angle. I think there is a slightly bigger debate about whether that means that certain developments that are technically in Blackthorn parish but are part of the built environment of Angle should or shouldn't move is a much more vexed question for some of the council, and I suspect the village as a whole. Not least because, of course, it's going to derive extra income, for example, from the countryside side. Which is increased. So their draft budget looks to not increase the payment for that indeed taxpayer, but will produce about £2,500 extra, which relative to the size of their budget is quite significant, because it's probably over a 10, it's more than a 10% increase just by virtue of that. So that was one thing. A second thing is obviously just to make the observation that full council last week, the council adopted in response to the Huntingdon Road, which was largely leaping up and down back in 605. Coincidentally, the same thing ended up in the Blackthorn Parish Council meeting agenda for the following night. On that basis, I took the liberty of providing them with a copy of exactly the same document put to Angle. And their response at the end of the day was, we will respond by saying that we have seen the response of the town council and heartily endorse it. And is that other councils may have done something.
Can I report a very boring statistic? On the way back from the Strategic Town Forum in Thrapston last Thursday, I counted the number of vehicles I drove past between Thrapston and the roundabout near the Ashton roundabout. And there were 82 vehicles going the other way. 42 of them were semi-trailers, and 40 were cars.
Lorries.
So 50% of the traffic. 10 trucks. Containers.
We try getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and driving,
Yeah.
which I do, used to do a
Well,
lot.
that's 50%.
A lot of lorries.
All going up and down.
I mean, there's no doubt that road is used as a current between the air and the edge.
Absolutely.
That's without consideration of the existing warehousing, let alone the 2 units proposed at Thrapston and what's proposed at Tower End. It is rather alarming.
Actually, I'm sorry, I missed that meeting. So I was trying to work out what they're doing. So this is at the A605, at the A1 end.
Yeah.
They're doing where?
So in the, because Huntingdon are reviewing their creating new, and they did a call for sites.
Oh.
And various sites effectively around Peterborough Services area have been suggested for warehousing. With entrances that would come out onto the roundabout that serves Peterborough Services and
Yeah.
Phillips.
I know, yeah.
That is chaos
No.
at times in vehicles and individuals, and this is only going to make it much worse for the rest of the day. We shall see.
But we are the county around.
Is that what it says on the sign there?
Well, that's big,
Yes.
the big 50, you know, that big 50.
Mm.
They did the first thing, they gave us statistics about Northamptonshire, North Northamptonshire. And one of the big ones, which made me sort of go, it's been one of the gradual build-ups over time, is that we are becoming the West.
Mm.
Because we're apparently 2.5 hours away from 85%. That's what makes Northamptonshire so interesting. And of course, the A14 has changed a lot of that
Mm.
way it is. And so there's an issue about jobs, it's low-level jobs, not high-level jobs, etc. But that's something that's there and we'll only get.
I think that's right.
So I need to dual the A605.
Because the discussion that we had immediately prior to this meeting is not part of the meeting and wasn't formally limited, just to report that we had a concerned parishioner come to speak to us prior to the meeting
Yeah.
around an issue with trees. And I think it would be sensible to put an item on our next agenda around, as it were, the interaction of trees and planning. But I'm also very conscious of the fact that estates are going to be looking at our own estate in particular, to some extent, maybe in coordination with this committee, at least here, sort of trees in town generally. Because if there is one thing guaranteed to get people moving up and down, it is when things happen to trees that they value in and around the town.
Should just serve trees, something like that. It's really brought up the issue, hasn't it? You lose a tree and people are really, it's brought home. And
It
of
has.
course,
And that, I think,
Yeah.
will conclude the meeting. So, 8:15, I'll declare the meeting.
Good. Thank you very much. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.